Hello, ladies and jelly spoons. Welcome to the Game Dojo. I'm your host, the Game Ninja. This is Gamer Nation. You know where you are. And it has been a little over 24 hours since the Nintendo Switch successor, the Nintendo Switch 2, came out. And we're going to talk about it. So, first of all, let's just talk about, let's just show the elephant in the room, the Nintendo Switch 2. This is what we're here to talk about. This is the elephant in the room. This is what's on everybody's mouth. This is what people waited outside for like it was Christmas Eve or Black Friday. This little box with so much power. But can Nintendo reclaim back the slogan of Nintendo, now you're playing with power? After all, we are talking about the spiritual successor of the first original Switch. Now, the original Switch 1 broke records, broke all kind of preconceived notions of what Nintendo can do, both as a handheld and as a console on a TV. The Nintendo Switch was nothing short of groundbreaking, but this is nothing new. Nintendo, since the 80s, has always dealt with handhelds, have always been the king of handhelds. Nintendo has always been inventive when it comes to handhelds. But as the Switch had reached its end life cycle in over 8 years, could lightning strike twice in the same spot? We're taught it can't, but today we're going to go over that. So I'm going to dock my Switch. And let's talk about the Nintendo Switch 2. So, first off, surrounding Nintendo Switch's 2 launch, there was a bunch of animosity. The problems being anywhere from the cost of the Nintendo Switch to the price of the games to just everything in general. And at first, if you're not an avid gamer, if you're not an avid consumer, if you're not somebody who's in the space of gaming today in today's society, both PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo was never even in contention until the Switch 1 came out. Then it started popping into people's mouths, onto their chats, onto their dinner tables, that maybe the Switch is something we should look into. Xbox ran with its ball, next-gen graphics, teraflops. PlayStation ran with its ball, next-gen graphics, teraflops, video cards. They boasted the power of their systems, the raw power of their systems, to perform graphically inside the spatial awareness of gaming. But the problem is while they focused very hard on their consoles, little attention was paid to gaming. Some games took 12 to 13 years to come out. Some took 2 and 3 years to come out and absolutely flopped. Some of them had over-expanded budgets, which did not return when the games came out, making them potential disasters when it comes to the economic side of gaming and profits. The problem is something had been lost. But on the Nintendo side, Nintendo, the Switch, had dropped a first-party game every month of I would say, for almost 3 years running, even through COVID. Nintendo, launch after launch after launch after launch. First party, first party, first party, first party. Chip shortage. We're going to make an OLED. We're going to make a Nintendo Switch Lite. So it seemed like when other game makers were having huge issues, Nintendo was prosperous at the seams. That little engine that could. That turtle that keeps going while the hare is running. And the tortoise truly beat the hare, because Nintendo's profits for the Nintendo Switch are nothing short of amazing. Let's talk about Mario Kart, one of their highest selling games. Premiering on the Nintendo Wii U, Mario Kart 8 changed the face of Mario Kart gaming. It was literally everything you wanted in a game. And Mario Kart, a franchise that had been alive since the 90s with the Super Nintendo, was now back on the breakfast table in epidemic proportions. Now, the Wii U Mario Kart 8 sold tremendously, even after the DLC. But then it came time for the Switch, because the Wii U was not selling the way Nintendo wanted. The Wii U, though one of my favorite systems, was not well received by a lot of people. Now, I am a Team Nintendo fan member. You can tell by the Mario on my wall and all the different Mario walls. I am a Team Nintendo fan member. But on the same token, I am a gamer first. And I look for three things when I play a game. Number one, fun factor. Number two, can you entertain me? Can you hold me and grip me long enough for me to enjoy? And number three, prettiness, graphics. Yeah, I know I'd like to say graphics don't matter, but I come from a time where sprites and graphics and men had L's for feet. So if you render something that looks like a cartoon, like say Neo Geo, TurboGrafx 16, Sega Dreamcast, Sega CD, Sega 32X, Nintendo, Super Nintendo 64, if you render something that to me is mesmerizing, you had me at hello. But now you have to have a system able to complement such games. The Nintendo Switch, like lightning in a bottle, following the trail of Wii U. Everyone thought Nintendo was done, counted out of the contention. There would only be two big boys, Xbox and PlayStation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, not if Nintendo had anything to say about it. I don't even think Nintendo knew how amazing the Switch would be. But well received as it was, The Tonight Show, Jimmy Fallon, Coast to Coast, everybody had their little Switch. Every single last person had their little Switch, and they were jumping on it on rainbows. Matter of fact, let me see if I can let you guys hear it. So this is one of the sounds that made Nintendo that classic. I'm gonna put the Joy-Con in. I can barely see because of my glasses. Okay. You hear that sound? I'll do it again from this side. Can you guys hear it? That Nintendo classic click sound would be the ASMR for a new generation. The Nintendo Switch literally was the game changer for everybody. And then they announced so many amazing things on this little system that it changed how we thought about gaming. No longer could you have to stay at home with your gaming system, but you could take that same game system home with you. You could take that same game system on the road. You could dock it to a TV. You could carry it with you. You could play some of the most amazing games that you played on other systems in the palm of your hand. You was no longer held by TV standards. You no longer had to stay with that TV. You could bring it with you. And it's simple. You just take this little game system, you slide it into the dock, and what you were playing here is now on the screen. Don't have to worry about switching and clicking and turning on different things. You just dock it, and what you're playing handheld is on the TV. Somebody wants you to watch something, take it out, and there's no locking or nothing into place. You just lift it out, walk away with it, and what you were playing on the TV is now in your hands, switching from one point to the next. Thus the name, Nintendo Switch. And this bad boy, this was the game changer. Nintendo Switch, from game to game to game to game, and I do believe their console library is over 1,000, way more than that. I'm on the low end of the structure, but 3 games changed the face of gaming for Nintendo. And it was during the worst time, and one of the worst times in American history, one of the times in the world's history, not just American history, COVID. Now, I would like to take this time during this video to show honor, respects, love, and propers to everyone who has dealt with the situation, because the situation, the pandemic, affected us three different ways. Number one, we all have some form of PTSD. We are social creatures by nature, and to not be able to socialize, talk, and be around people was a mentally distressing, at its very least, at its core, a destroying detriment. Number two, with the toll, and you can dispute it which way you want, but millions and millions of people from around the world have passed on. And they passed on in a way that no human should. In an airtight environment where not even their loved ones could say goodbye to them. And that is probably the most disturbing part of COVID. And so many people have passed, and this is undisputed, so many people have passed from COVID that almost everybody that I know knows someone, is friends with someone, or lost someone theirself. That's how strong the death toll was. That almost everybody was affected by the death in COVID. That's how many people passed on. And the third aspect of it changing us is we weren't able to go out. We weren't able to go to our stores. We weren't able to go swimming. We weren't able to go out on spring break. We weren't able to do the things we wanted to do when it came to do them. And this literally froze a lot of things. In game factories, game makers could not work amongst each other. Game producers could not be in the same rooms together. With social distancing and Zoom calling, everything was done from steps back, which slowed down the gaming industry to a crawl, almost nothing. And the biggest patience of this was Xbox and PlayStation. And then with the semiconductor shortage chiming in, it literally almost killed the production and the game manufacturing for PlayStation and Xbox. But people wondered, how would this affect the Nintendo and the Nintendo Switch? Well, it turns out Nintendo had a game. You couldn't have timed it better. You couldn't have marketed it better. But at the time where the world was shut in, Nintendo dropped a game called Animal Crossing New Horizons. If you don't know what this game is, you will sooner or later, because it was the talk of everybody's table. Presidents had their island. Football teams, soccer teams, baseball teams, professional stars in Hollywood. Everybody had their island. Everybody had their merch. Everybody wanted to go to everybody's island. It was a way for you to talk, interact, and meet people digitally in ways that you could not do physically. And Animal Crossing New Horizons not only hit that niche, it cleared it in bounds, becoming probably the second highest grossing game for Nintendo. Even during the pandemic, you could not keep it on the shelves. What few copies that were sent to stores sold out immediately, and digitally it sold expositantly. Like, it was just literally, and this Animal Crossing phenomenon took craze and blew up. At the same time it was blowing up, everybody who had Animal Crossing was hearing about this Mario Kart thing. What is Mario Kart? What is it? What is it about? And everybody was jumping onto the Mario Kart aspect. And once you jumped into Mario Kart, it's just like a social networking app, because you could talk to people on the line, you could play with people online, you could see and deal with all these great, amazing situations online in the spirit of helpful, youthful, great competition, we shall say. And then Mario Kart became a talking point, so much to the point that almost everybody who has a Switch has a copy of Mario Kart. That's the amazing part. Almost everybody that has a Switch has Mario Kart. Over 80 million copies were sold. That is insane. Think about that number. Over 80 million copies sold. You could not keep Mario Kart in stock. Even to, I would say, last month, if you walked into a Walmart, a Target, or a Best Buy, copies of Mario Kart were still selling. And it will still sell now, because not everybody's made the jump to Switch 2. So Mario Kart, Animal Crossing and thousands of other games will still be there. You had the Pokemon franchise. You had the Smash Brothers Ultimate franchise. You had the Mario Party franchise. You had 2K wrestling on the Nintendo Switch. 2K basketball on the Nintendo Switch. You had the Batman collection. You had Grand Theft Auto collection. You had the Tomb Raider collection. All of these collections of great games could now be played in the palm of your hand, outside on the front porch, in the backyard barbecuing, in the car going on vacation, driving for hours, on a plane, in a public park. You could meet people, you could hook up headphones and talk to people. There was voice chat in your favorite games that you could speak to people on. It literally turned Nintendo from the failure of Wii U, which I don't believe it was a failure. I know financially they say it is, but I don't believe it is. From the failure of Wii U to the enormous success of the Nintendo Switch. Nintendo literally for 4 years, I would say, some would say up to 7 years running, was the game maker, game manufacturer, game producer, and literally game launcher throughout the gaming economy. The PS5 premiered. It sold crazily, but there were almost no games for it. The Xbox I think it's the Series S, came out. Everything was great, absolutely amazing, but it could not produce the games and the volume of the previous life cycles. The PlayStation 4 had more games. The PlayStation 3 had more games. The PlayStation 2 had the most games. Xbox, you got the Xbox, not the Series X. What came out before the Series X? It was the 360, then it was the Xbox One, and then the One X. Yeah, so going back and console life cycles, their games were more. There were more games, thus they sold more first-party exclusive experiences. Nintendo broke that, broke the mold, and ran with the ball. Nintendo now had the ability to put PlayStation games on its console and handheld. Xbox, they had the ability to take games from Xbox, put it on its console, and sell it, and then walk around handheld with such great games. It did things that most huge companies did not believe it could do, but it was limited by one aspect: its hardware. Even though some of the most visually stunning games could be played on it, Monster Hunter, Rise, and Sunbreak, beautiful game. Beautiful game. Xenoblade Chronicles, both in Definitive Edition, absolutely beautiful world. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, still one of the most beautiful games I ever laid eyes on. Visually stunning, amazingly fun, lightning in a bottle. But Xbox was now coming to the Nintendo table. PlayStation was now coming to the Nintendo table. There is a Marvel game called Black Order on the Nintendo Switch that has all the Marvel characters. You know, the ones that Sony only has rights to. You know, the ones that Disney only has rights to. Well, Nintendo, through an old license, had the ability to use all those IPs. And you can only get it on Nintendo, the Black Order. You can only get it on Nintendo. Spider-Man, Spider-Gwen, Miles Morales, all the characters that you were looking for. Guardians of the Galaxy, Black Panther, every character you were looking for is on there. And it's absolutely one of the least talked about, most impressive games on the Switch. Marvel Deadly Alliance, Black Order. Another phenomenal game. But as the Switch marched on year after year after year after year after year with success, people were like, what is next for Nintendo? What is next, Nintendo? What do you have up your sleeve? And Nintendo knew Mario Kart was its biggest selling game. And so they couldn't put out the new Nintendo, because nobody talked about it. It didn't exist. And everybody wanted another Mario Kart experience, but nobody talked about it. It didn't exist. But what actually ended up happening, which was amazing, is we now know that when Mario Kart 8 did come out, Nintendo was working on another Mario Kart for years, over I think like something like 8 years. They were working on a new Mario Kart, but it never came to fruition the way they wanted to. They wanted to deliver an ultimate experience. Mission accomplished. The Switch 2 came out yesterday. And as somebody who spent probably about 5 or 6 hours playing Mario Kart World, I'm going to absolutely tell you, you guys have achieved your goal. Despite the negative press that people are trying to give you, despite the back talking in corners, despite people trying to rip it down and tear down your beautiful event and your beautiful system, despite how people try to hate against you, you have overcome through adversity and you persevered with beauty. The Nintendo Switch is an absolutely beautiful marvel of a system, both with NVIDIA as its processor and new technology that had never been used before. You're gonna hear words of people speaking in jargon, teraflops, and oh, equal to this, and this is that, and this is that. You have to understand that a lot of people's narratives are paid for. A lot of people's narratives are to tank. And negativity, no matter if it's good or bad, gets people talking. And sometimes people just want clout for tanking things. They want to be trolls. They want to be haters. That is their job. You won't get that from me here. Sorry. Nintendo, absolutely beautiful swan song. The Nintendo Switch 2 is everything I ever dreamed of and more. It lived up to every aspiration, every thought, every wonder that I hoped that you could do, you have achieved. And with Mario Kart being your launch title on the system, along with 24 other launch titles, people can say what they want to, people can pretend the way they want to, but the media was there. People were outside on stores around corners like it was Black Friday. People had launch parties. There were people everywhere across the world. The pre-orders sold out in minutes all over the world. The biggest this, breaking pre-orders, breaking this, sold out, sold out, sold out, sold out. Couldn't keep your hands on them. So if it really was as bad as people were trying to portray it, if it really is not as powerful and not as great as people were trying to lead you to believe, it wouldn't have sold like this. And when you talk about market price, it cost them $400 to produce. They're charging you $450. That's $50 over their production cost. Not bad. How much did that new PlayStation 5 Pro cost you? $800? $800, no disk drive, no stand, no love. Where's the love? When Nintendo Switch 2 came out, they bundled it with Mario Kart and took $30 off the price. Another loss. So they're selling the system at a loss. They're selling a game at a loss. And then people are like, oh, $80 games, $80 games, $80 games. You can rewind back and Google it. You can rewind back and look. But in 1996, on a Nintendo 64, go back and price check some of them games. Price check for the TurboGrafx 16, for the Panasonic 3DO Reel, for Nintendo 64, for PlayStation, for Xbox. Go back and look into the price of some of those games. You'd be surprised. $69, $79, $95. That's right. Games even back then were $80. So quit your bitching. You don't want it? Don't buy it. You don't want to spend your guap on it? Don't buy it. You don't want the system? Don't buy it. But for the millions and millions of Switch fans, they spoke with their pockets. Nintendo, hats off. Once again, I'm talking about that Switch 2. That Nintendo Switch 2. And that is what we're here to talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, I just happen to have that big, beautiful Switch 2 right here. Yeah, baby. Absolutely. And when you pull off the magnetic Joy-Con, because now they're magnetic with a super powerful magnetic, and you slide it into place, you get the actual click, not the digital click from the Switch 1. You get the actual click. And when you hit that power button, oh, it's there. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you the Nintendo Switch 2. The sound, the function, the design, this is nothing short of genius. I have big hands, super huge hands. Let me show you just in actual visuals the size difference between the Nintendo Switch 1 and Nintendo Switch 2. Sorry, I had to click on there. Nintendo Switch 1, Nintendo Switch 2. You can see by size and volume, the Nintendo Switch 2 is way bigger. The Joy-Cons are way bigger. But let's give you the acid test of that. So I have huge hands. And playing the Nintendo Switch, like I always did, after a while, you get cramps. And if you're playing two-player, you can play two players with the Switch, turning it sideways. They're little Joy-Cons. They're little controllers themselves. So the Switch comes with basically 3 controllers, each one of the Joy-Cons and a dog face controller. And the dog face controller is your first pro wireless controller. I love that sound. So literally playing with the Switch, and I've had Mario Kart tournaments in the break room during lunch where we don't have a controller and you're like, no problem. Now this is my controller. Take off the second one. Now that's your controller. Just that simple. 2 controllers that come along with the console anywhere and everywhere you go. Great system, phenomenal gameplay, but my hands, they're huge. You see? My hands are huge. So playing for a very long time on these gave me cramps and problems. Definitely an issue that they noted and had. They also had some drift stick Joy-Con issues, which anybody who's had a controller for a long period of time knows there's problems with drift. It does happen with new controllers. It's just a fact of life in the current gaming status. It just happens. It's part of it. But Nintendo, who stood on business, said, guess what? If you got a problem with your Joy-Cons, send them in. Give us your number. And if we'll fix them and send them back to you. If we can't fix them, we'll give you a new set of Joy-Cons. They gave me a new set of Joy-Cons, free of charge. I don't know. I don't. If your Xbox or your PlayStation controller has an issue, I don't see them sending it back to you. I don't see them replacing your controller for free, unless it's a manufacturer problem. Nintendo did it, but I ended up getting these Hori Joy-Cons, which are bigger and fit better on the system with your hands, so that I could play for more extended hours of time, and that helped me out tremendously. But the problems that you had with your Switch, size-wise and little things, Nintendo were listening and they changed. Because with the Nintendo Switch 2, the Joy-Cons are bigger. The sound design is bigger. 120 frames per second with HDR in handheld mode or TV mode, if your TV supports it. The raw power, the raw juice, allows this baby to run games like Cyberpunk, a game that when it first came out, only PC could run. PlayStation at a time with Project, I hate to talk about it, Project Red, but it is what it is. Like, you came back, you now stand still, you stand tall. It's okay. I understand you don't want to talk about it, but we're going to talk about it because we gamers here. When it first came out, it couldn't run on PlayStation. It couldn't run on Xbox. No matter what system you had, it couldn't run on it. The PC was the only game system that it actually ran on, and it's not a game system or a console. It's a PC. All the footage that they showed for the game came out that it was a PC test render, and people saw PC as like, oh, I can't even buy it. It did so bad, and there were so many graphics and glitches that they took it off the PlayStation market, off the PlayStation eStore. They took it off the Xbox store. And then they went back to the table, they came up with things, and then they came back with Cyberpunk. But this just gives you an example of how strong Cyberpunk is. Well, the Nintendo Switch 2 premiered with Cyberpunk 2077 plus the DLC at launch. And it runs just as great as its counterparts on PlayStation and Xbox, both in handheld and in docked. That's the power of the Nintendo Switch. That's the engineering of the Nintendo Switch. That this little system right here in the palm of your hand well, not so little, I can't even wrap my whole hand around it, literally runs games that PlayStation and Xbox could not function to run, but this did it in bounds. The beauty of the Nintendo Switch 2. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's take a little tour of handheld mode. I'm gonna spin around so you can look over my shoulder and just watch just a little bit of functionality of the Nintendo Switch 2. Let's do it. First of all, for the thumbnail, I gotta do something for the thumbnail. Sorry about that. I had to do a little something for the thumbnail. Now I'm about face it, and we gonna turn around, and you guys gonna get your first look at a Nintendo Switch 2 in action. All right, guys, can you see that? There you go. You can see it a little bit better. Sit back and relax, guys. Grab some snacks. I get the thrashing, you get the laughing. Oh man, I hit the wrong thing. That's not good. Oh man. Ladies and gentlemen, that was just a little bit of the handheld experience of Super Mario Kart World from the Nintendo Switch 2. Moderating, literally going crazy after this system, I can actually say with 100% absolute certainty, this is a success. It was a success during its pre-order phase. It was a success during its whispering campaign. It was a success on a launch. And a successful launch is what you need to catapult your new gaming system to the stratosphere. And this Christmas, there isn't too much coming out for Xbox. There isn't too much coming out for PlayStation. But at launch, there were 24 games plus for the Nintendo Switch 2. And Nintendo next month has Donkey Kong. Literally every month going forward, Nintendo is going to be dropping bombs for the Nintendo Switch 2. This Christmas, I call it from today, belongs to Nintendo Switch 2. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, what did I give Nintendo Switch 2? Well, it's no surprise. It is the highest rating I could give something. This is triple platinum in the Game Dojo. Triple platinum. What do I think about this system? I can't stop playing it. I can't put it down. The sound, the visuals, the experience of it is unlike anything I've ever felt before. And apparently I'm not the only one, because millions upon millions and millions of gamers have bought this and are playing it right now. You ain't gonna be able to turn on a YouTube video, a TikTok session, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. You ain't gonna be able to go to X, on formerly known as Twitter, without hearing about this bad boy. This bad boy literally is breaking records. And its day one was yesterday. Literally just 24 hours after the system launched. It is the talking piece, the showpiece. And you're going to see like beautiful girls taking pictures with their Nintendo Switch. You're going to see handsome buff guys playing basketball, sit down, wipe their hair with a towel, drink some Gatorade, and pull out the Nintendo Switch. It is the talking point. This is the future. Nintendo has moved on to a new era of gaming. And this is its name, the Nintendo Switch 2. And for me, as a long-standing Nintendo fan since 1985, I'm glad that I was alive to see it. I'm glad I was alive to experience. I'm glad that I was blessed enough to see this come to fruition. And no matter where I go, no matter where it goes, no matter where you go, we experience this moment together. Nintendo, thank you for the memories. Thank you for being a part of my childhood. Thank you for giving me something that I didn't know I needed since 1985. And here in 2025, not only are you still alive, but yes, you thrive. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I will see you next time in the gameplay. But until then, you know where to find me. Maybe in the bathroom, maybe in the backyard, maybe on your front porch. But whether it's me or you, I will have that Nintendo Switch 2. Check you guys next time.